You know, have you ever really stopped to think about what separates us from everything else? I mean, from a star or a tree or even a mountain. It turns out it all boils down to a single moment, a single choice. A choice that was put on the table for the entire universe, and only one creature was, well, bold enough to say yes. Let's dig into what that choice really meant. We have offered the responsibility. Just listen to that first word, offered. This wasn't a command. It was a proposal, a kind of trust, presented to the biggest, most solid parts of creation. And they all said no thanks. They were afraid of it. But the human being, we accepted. Now, the verse calls this act transgressing and ignorant. But was it really? Or was it the single most important moment in our entire existence? And that really gets to the heart of the mystery, right? Why would we, of all creatures, say yes to a burden so massive that the mountains themselves backed away from it? What on earth were we signing up for?
That responsibility is called al-amana, or the trust. And it's basically the weight of having real, genuine free will. The ability to choose right from wrong, to go off course, to fail, or to succeed. The mountains weren't punished for saying no. They just knew what they were. They knew they couldn't handle the pressure of real choice. But us? Yeah, we said yes.
So we said yes. And that single choice, that acceptance, that is what makes us human. It's not just some extra feature we have. It's like the core of our entire operating system. It's a burden, for sure. But as we're about to see, it's the very burden that gives us our identity. So this is the key takeaway here. We shouldn't think of this burden of choice as something getting in the way of a nice, peaceful life. It is the life. It's the whole point of the human project. This isn't an obstacle to get over. It's the very field we're meant to play on. Okay, so check out this comparison. It's really fascinating. On one side, you've got the mountain. It has perfect integrity. It can't mess up being a mountain. But because it cannot fail, it also has zero freedom. It obeys unwillingly, not because it's resisting, but because willing isn't even in its vocabulary. Now, look at the human. We live with the constant possibility of failure. And because we can fail, our freedom is real. Our obedience, when we actually choose it, is willing, and that means it counts for something. All right, so if we're going to have this real high-stakes freedom, what do we actually need for it to work? What are the basic building blocks? Well, it turns out there are 3 pillars that you absolutely cannot do without. First, you need knowledge, like an internal compass, a built-in sense of right and wrong. The source material says this is baked right into our souls. Second, you need free will, the actual engine that lets you act on that knowledge, to pick one road instead of another. And third, you need opportunity, a real world with real friction and real challenges where your choices actually matter. And this shows you just how delicate this whole setup is. You take away any one of those pillars, and the entire concept of freedom just falls apart. Knowledge without will, you're just a spectator watching a movie you can't influence. Will without knowledge, that's just chaos, random impulse. And having both but no opportunity to use them, well, that's just a different kind of cage. So let's zoom in on that third requirement, opportunity, because it brings up a really interesting and, frankly, very modern problem. What happens when we try to engineer all the friction and struggle out of our lives? Seriously, just take a second and think about this. A future where technology has fixed every single problem. There's no struggle, no hardship, no mountains to climb. What do you actually do all day? What gives your life meaning or direction when there's nothing to push against? And here's the crazy twist. This utopian dream isn't human freedom. It's actually a return to the state of the mountain. It's a world without any meaningful choice because there's no resistance. We would have essentially given the amana back, trading our defining burden for a life of perfect, stable, and ultimately hollow comfort. Now, to get this, we have to understand that the Quran uses 2 different words for the human being. The first one is bashar. This is our physical side, the creature made of clay, our biological, animal self with all its needs and instincts. It's the raw material. But then there's insan. This is what the bashar is supposed to become. The insan is the one who carries the amana, the being who has that inner space where real choice happens. See, you're born a bashar, but you have to become an insan through the choices you make every day. So that brings us back to the big why. I mean, why did God set it up this way? Why make it an offer? Why not just program us to be good like the rest of creation? The whole point of creation, we're told, is worship. But, and this is a huge but, The key is to understand what kind of worship we're talking about. It's not the automatic, programmed compliance of planets orbiting the sun. They don't have another option.
Because when you get right down to it, you can't truly worship something you are forced to obey. Real worship needs the possibility of walking away. It has to be a choice. The sun doesn't get a gold star for rising in the morning, but a human being who chooses to do the right thing when they absolutely could have done otherwise, well, that's an act that echoes through the cosmos.
Okay, so if our purpose is to use this freedom of choice, where and how are we supposed to do that? Well, it turns out the world is designed to be a very specific kind of place. You can think of it as a gymnasium for the soul. The Quran uses this word kabad. It means toil, struggle, hard work that really costs you something. Just let that sink in for a second. We were not created for a life of ease. Struggle isn't some glitch in the system, it's the main feature. It's the workout equipment in the gym. The text then says we're shown two paths and that we should choose the difficult one. So the obvious question is, what exactly is this difficult path? Is it some deep, abstract spiritual practice? The answer is just stunningly concrete. It's not about meditating on a mountaintop. The difficult path is freeing slaves, feeding the hungry when times are tough, taking care of orphans, helping the poor who have nothing. It is relentlessly social and focused on others. So the implication here is just massive. The primary way we use the amana, the main way we become fully human, is by turning toward the hardship of other people and making it our problem to solve. A world without suffering would be a world where our own humanity could never really grow. And this, right here, is the most powerful idea in this whole discussion. The struggles, the challenges, the needs of other people, these aren't roadblocks getting in the way of your freedom. They are the very raw material that your freedom is made of. In the very beginning, you accepted a burden that the mountains refused. You chose the risk of failure for the chance to be something more. So the question that's left for every single one of us, every single day, is what are you going to do with that choice?